Welcome in to Words with Wallace. I'm your host, Nick Wallace, coming at you Saturday, May 2nd. Recording this podcast after the Celtics lost Game 7 against the Philadelphia 76ers after blowing a 3-1 series lead. So I know I've been neglecting this podcast feed here. Unfortunately, didn't get you guys a podcast for about 2 weeks. I gave you guys a playoff preview. Was a little bit sick last week, missed that opportunity to record like I normally would when all the round one series were in full swing. Luckily for the casual fans, we still have a really great playoff slate tomorrow. And we're going to talk about all those series, recap all of round one tomorrow. But today, of course, we wanted to focus on the Celtics loss. And I know that there's a lot of Celtics fans that do listen to this podcast. And there's probably only one guy you want to hear from at a time like this. And it's not me. That guy's RJ Rossaza, my guy. Thanks to him for coming on this podcast, braving the elements, recording it from his back patio in the freezing cold in Massachusetts. Knew we had to put out the bat signal and get RJ on. He came on very short notice because that's his wheelhouse. So we're very lucky to have him. Big thanks to RJ for joining here shortly. Just wanted to call out that we will be recording a podcast to cover all the round one series tomorrow. And today is the Celtics funeral, as Joel Embiid has maybe a career series against the Celtics. Paul George could say the same. Maxey closes out with 30 points. And so, yeah, brutal to lose to the Philadelphia 76ers and their god-awful fans. And so we wanted to have a bit of a funeral. And that's what we did here on this podcast. So hopefully you guys enjoy and understand that I'll cover all the round one series tomorrow, the rest of them rather, and enjoy this Celtics funeral that RJ and I prepared for you guys. Coming at you with a very special edition of Words with Wallace after the Celtics blew a 3-1 lead to the Philadelphia 76ers and lost in, I don't want to say dramatic fashion, because really it was a miracle for the Celtics to be in that game late. But I have a very special guest, RJ Rossaza. RJ, it's been way too long. I apologize for putting out the bat signal on very short notice, but we're very happy to have you. And I guess I'll just kind of open it up to have you give your experience watching that game, and we can go back and forth for a bit here.
Well, if I'm coming on the show, it means the Celtics lost. But yes, you did put the bat signal out. I knew it was coming to. Just disgusted. I just think this team is it's just gross. Like, just hucking up the threes nonstop. We can get to the coach in a little bit if you want to, but it's like,
definitely.
Congratulations, you made the Sixers look like winners. This team, Joel Embiid, Paul George, they're chokers. They're losers. And you made them look like winners. I just think they had no business being in that game. I thought right out the get-go they looked flat, because what are they doing to start the game? They're hucking up threes. They're missing threes, and they're down 9-0 to start the game. So the entire game, they were playing catch-up. And yes, they won a nice little run in the fourth quarter, but at the end of the day, it was not enough.
It honestly felt like, with the way that the Celtics started that game, falling down 9-0, you called it. Immediately, there was a reliance on, we're going to play the same Celtics ball that we played all year long. And I understand to an extent taking a high volume of 3-point shots, but it was evident that everybody was tight. The two settle down guys that we had on the court in what was an unproven starting lineup. So let's just start there. Let's set the scene a little bit. Obviously I was late to the party and found out right before tip-off, because I was offline, that Jason Tatum was out for this game. And then we get the news that there's going to be a starting lineup of Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and instead of the usual crew we have out there just subbing out Tatum, we decided to go with Ron Harper Jr., Luka Garza, and Baylor Shireman, guys that notoriously did not get a lot of burn earlier in the series. And so it felt kind of desperate in the moment. I don't necessarily hate the swing in a nutshell, but it did feel like too little too late, with Joe Mazzulla having a reliance on Jaylen Brown, bail us out, Jason Tatum, bail us out, Vucevic, see if you can figure it out for the first time in a Celtics uniform against the Philadelphia 76ers in the playoffs. And we start there, and we immediately come out flat. We fall down 9-0. Every single jump shot is short. Jaylen Brown, turnover. Finished the game with only 3 turnovers. It felt like all of those came within the first couple minutes of the game. What was going through your mind as you're watching it? How did you react to the news to A, Tatum being out, and B, going with a lineup of 3 guys that had not seen a lot of minutes early on in this series?
It's funny with the Tatum injury situation, because initially the Celtics released the injury report. There was no injuries. And then it was Jason Tatum questionable, and it was Jason Tatum out. And as somebody that bets, you saw the spread continue to drop and drop. And I believe the Celtics closed at a 4.5-point favorite. And I don't mind switching up the starting lineup, but you're putting these guys in there that have been cold. They've been sitting on the bench for have really not played any minutes in 2 or 3 weeks. And there's also guys that are, comes down to how the roster was constructed, and that maybe we overrated this team because of the success they had in the regular season. These guys are borderline NBA players, if we're being honest. And I think you mentioned Vucevic. He didn't even play tonight, correct?
No, correct. He
Healthy
did not play a
scratch,
single minute.
0
Healthy
minutes.
scratch.
And that was supposed to be your deadline guy that you went out and got at the deadline. Is there any chance we could take Brad Stevens' Executive of the Year award away? Because this roster, like, it sucks. The team sucks. Like, the roster just sucks. And it's not so much his fault. Like, we thought this was going to be a bridge year. And I think that's kind of how he constructed it. But, like, the team's not good. They don't have a single real big guy on this team. Like, Kata, like, idiot, can't stay out of foul trouble. Like, cannot help himself. Like, complete knucklehead. Then you have the two other 20-year-old kid. And then you have another, like, horrible, horrendous front court. Horrific. Big guys.
Part of the reason that this is such a brutal pill to swallow for us and any Celtics fans out there, you got to start with the fact that this is against Philadelphia. And we do agree with your previous sentiment that Embiid and playoff P, so to speak, have been losers for the large part of their career. They do deserve some credit because, as frustrated as I am, I have to acknowledge that the better team won tonight. And the fact that we were even in the game late is kind of a surprise, to be totally honest with you. But beyond that, I feel really foolish for picking the Celtics to come out of the East, because I do feel like the East is wide open. That's evident by the fact that we have 3 Game 7s in round 1. But I was a fool for thinking that the Celtics were the one team that had the best case to come out the East and just kind of be levitating above everybody else. And evidently that's not the case. And I don't think the Tatum injury thing is an excuse, because this team amassed, 55 wins or somewhere in that neighborhood during the regular season, largely without Jason Tatum, and maybe even looked at their best before he even returned from injury. But I gave Joe Mazzulla a lot of credit. I felt like that guy turned a corner. I thought Brad Stevens, obviously this was kind of a gap year and whatever, and I don't want to say that as like an excuse, but, we had a lot of guys that were unproven in the NBA so far. And here we are. I was kind of talked into them, the role players, being a deeper team than certainly Philadelphia had to offer. And ultimately, it just felt like we were outmatched. And I don't know about you. Did you feel like it was a bit desperate to start those guys? I mean, obviously, like, I don't hate it if Baylor Shireman and Ron Harper and Luka Garza are getting minutes early series, but that was not the case. So did you feel like I did, like that was just kind of a desperate move from Joe Mazzulla, like a too little too late situation?
Well, it's almost like he had nothing left in the tank to give. Like that, like, this is my only, like, I don't really know how to coach, to be completely honest. So I'm just going to switch up the starting lineup because nothing else is working. Like you said, you're putting these guys in the game in a Game 7. Who, like, you saw some of those threes that Shireman, or whatever, how you ever pronounce his name, was hawking up horrific threes that he wasn't even hitting the rim on. And I know, like you said, you don't use the Tatum injury as an excuse, but unfortunately, there's going to be a certain percentage of the fan base that does, because they don't have brains. And that's what I consider, like, the green teamers, the losers that, like, just think, like, they wake up and they think everything is just rainbows and flowers is what they do. And they're going to use that as an excuse. And that's what people forget too, is we have a new ownership group too. So I don't know how they're going to handle this. They could be like, hey, we like Mazzulla, we like his culture, we want to build a culture, we don't want to be one of these organizations that moves on from coaches every few years. Or they could be like, this is just not acceptable and we're moving off of you. Personally, I think the guy stinks as a head coach. I don't know what he does well. He's not good with X's and O's. And if you're not good with X's and O's, at the bare minimum, what you could do is you could be a rah guy, a motivation coach. Clearly, he doesn't do that well either, because if he did, we wouldn't have just blown a 3-1 lead. They came out so flat in games 5 and 6. They looked like they didn't even want to be there. Like they were completely mailing it in. And does coaching matter that much in the NBA? Probably not. But at the bare minimum, you could at least motivate your guys to go out there and win. And he failed at doing that. And, like,
Absolutely.
here's the other thing. Like, and they, like, we love Joe, like these fanboys. Oh, we love Joe Mazzulla because he watches The Town every week. And he does jujitsu at the training facility. The guy is just a weirdo loser. Like every press conference, Joe, you shot 9 for 48 from 3. Yeah, we had some open looks and they just didn't fall. Like, put that on replay. That's what every single press conference has been, when this team just continues to go out and just huck up threes. It's like deja vu. Live or die by the three. Same thing happened last year when they lost to the Knicks. They've lost. He's been the head coach for 4 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's been 4 years. 3 out of the 4 years, they've lost in the postseason to teams less than them, going down 3-0 to Miami. And then they win the championship because they have a super team. Then they lose to that Knicks team last year in the second round. Now they go out. Again, not a great roster. But guess what? You're the 2 seed going against a 7 seed. You have Tatum back. Even if he's not 100%, you're up 3-1. You should win that series. He's failed as a head coach 3 out of the 4 seasons. But I don't know what the net positive is keeping him around. And I know I'm rambling here, going on a rant a little bit, but like there's a reason they brought in these veteran assistant coaches like Sam Cassell, guys that actually know what they're doing on the bench because they know this guy, this kid, doesn't really know what he's doing.
And honestly, I think that the pill that's hard to swallow for me is that's a guy that I thought during the regular season deserved to win the Coach of the Year. You know, that award historically has been what coach has done the most with the least, right? And everybody kind of assumed the Celtics like maybe somewhere in like the 10-7 range. Like that's probably where they were projected to finish in the standings before the season. And I felt like he deserved it, right? But there is a massive distinction between coaching in the regular season and coaching in the playoffs. It's 82 games. It's a long season. The injury concerns and just the way the game is played, I do think it's harder for guys to hold up. So that's more of like a, hey, can we motivate guys in the regular season to play harder? Can we just have like a philosophy and a style of play that is repeatable game to game when you have 4 games in 7 nights or 5 games in 7 nights like you do frequently during the regular season? But in the playoffs, it's a different ballgame. You know who you're facing, potentially 7 games in a row, like what we just saw with Philadelphia. And it's about how do we adjust? How do we pull the right strings? And frankly, it felt like this guy had no answer to Joel Embiid, which is really frustrating because it's, for whatever you want to say about Joel Embiid, and trust me, I have thoughts because I think he might be the most unethical basketball player I've ever seen for all the hate that's thrown Shea's way and name your favorite foul baiter, but I think Joel Embiid is the worst. But to his credit, he wasn't dead. He didn't tear his ACL. He had a fucking appendectomy. His organs shut down randomly. That was a tough break for the guy. You knew he was going to come back probably at some point, right? It wasn't a foregone conclusion, but it shouldn't have been a surprise when the guy is reinserted into the lineup in whatever that was, game 4. And luckily it worked out for us at first to take a 3-1 series lead. But then every game after that, he torched us. And I felt like tonight, the moment where I was most disappointed with Joe Mazzulla, the starting lineup was a tough hit because I didn't actually hate that swing. I just felt like those guys should have been more accustomed to playing big minutes, those guys being the 3 bench guys that were in the starting lineup. But there was a massive play early in the game. I don't know if you caught this, but it was in the first quarter, and the ball lands in the lap of a Celtics assistant coach. I don't know the guy's name. He's sitting there. He's holding the ball. Joel Embiid goes over to him and yanks the ball out of his hand, damn near lifts this grown man off of his chair as Joel Embiid is swinging elbows, essentially in a jump ball with an assistant coach. Joe Mazzulla is 3 inches in front of that coach. And what does he preach? He's like, oh, when there's blood on the court, I love that. Muay Thai, whatever ism that he has about how hard he wants his guys to play and comparing basketball to war. And he acts like he didn't see a damn thing in that moment. What he could have done, he could have turned around. I'm not saying fight Joel Embiid. He's like my height, for God's sakes. But if you get in a tussle or draw attention to it, what's the worst that can happen? A double technical? Joel Embiid is infinitely more valuable to the Philadelphia 76ers than Joe Mazzulla is to us. You take that any day of the week, and that just could have sent a message to the team like, hey guys, we're going to show up and play right now, because they were down in the game. They started awful, and that could have been a momentum thing.
Well, you could say the same thing about the players too. What? You're going to think you can come up and you can touch one of my coaches like that? All you have to do is get in the muck there, and he's going to automatically get a technical foul. They'll double technicals, and they'll go about their way. I did see it happen, and I completely forgot about it. It's crazy that nobody else got in there to be like, you're not going to run up on our assistant coach. And then what you said about what they did in like the regular season, like it's not that hard to really in today's NBA to go win 50, 55 games when you have almost half the league tanking. So like I think you really have to like look at what he's done in the regular season and take it with a grain of salt when you come to evaluating his job and evaluating whether he's going to keep his job. Because there's just so many teams in this league. All you have to do is look at the standings, and you see the teams that are outside of the play-in, and it's like 20 and 50 something, like 40 games below 500. It's a sad state.
I just think that in in that moment, this game was lost in the first 12 minutes, and we were lucky to be down 13 or whatever we were after one, and then we somehow cut it to 5 after a decent stretch in the second quarter. But it just felt like that was a pivotal time in the game, and everybody was just so tight. The fans are tight. They're surprised Tatum's not playing. We have home court advantage, but we've already dropped 2 games to Philly at home earlier in this series, and it's absolutely unforgivable that the fact that we let them come into our building 3 different times and outplay us. But I agree. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as to say we need to get rid of the guy, because I do think it's hard to find a guy that rallies in the regular season. But I thought he had ascended into that upper echelon of coaching in the NBA, and it's not even close. So a couple other schematic things that I wanted to call out. I mean, I don't necessarily hate the decision for them to just not play Vucevic at all. I felt like part of the reason that Joe Mazzulla deserves so much hate sent his way after this series is that he was almost too proud to adjust. And that was the number one thing that I saw from him this series was like, hey, we're going to need Vucevic later in the run, so let's give him a bunch of burn in the first 3 games without Joel Embiid, because Philly has an awful crew of backup centers out there. So let's see if Vucevic can get going offensively. And it just never happened. And suddenly we're turning to a small lineup out there when we don't have Jason Tatum, who would be our best small ball 5, and we turn to a lineup of Jordan Walsh kind of as our center, or Jaylen Brown trying to guard Joel Embiid. And it was really frustrating to see a guy that can barely play in 40 regular season games go out there and just look like the best player on the court. And that's what Joel Embiid did. So just a quick snapshot, what's going through your mind in that third quarter, right? And we're going small, and Joel Embiid is just picking us apart.
Yeah. And all of them are in foul trouble too. So then it becomes a problem where they're not going to play him aggressive. And they're just, they're sagging off him, and they're giving him that mid-range jump shot, which he's going to hit 8, 9 out of 10 times. And it was just, and listen, I'm not going to be someone to blame the officials, because this game had nothing to do with the officials. But I can't stand that he gets the whistle from the referee, because I think I think the way he plays basketball is trash. I think he's garbage. And I think the fact that he still gets that like superstar whistle when the guy doesn't show up to play almost, half the season, almost feels like almost every season. He's continued to prove that he's just a choking loser, and yet he gets every single call from the refs. And that's just what the NBA is, which I don't understand why they haven't really changed up. Like, hey, we're going to change the way we officiate the game, because honestly, our audience doesn't like the way we officiate it. But I don't like watching him play, and I especially don't like losing to him and letting him go off in the team I root for. It's just not a fun watch in any way.
No, it's not. And I think a couple of them, you could kind of see in Joel Embiid's face and just how he reacts the first time he touches the ball. Like, sometimes he is looking for that elbow jumper, and I'll give him credit. That foul line jumper is a layup to him, where other guys, you can live with it, but it's certainly not the case with Embiid. And he did do enough damage from the field where, just looking at his stats for those that aren't staring at the box score like myself, he was 12 of 26 from the field. He finished the game with 34 points, 9 of 11 at the free throw line. And there was one call in particular that stuck out when Keita picked up his 3rd foul in that second quarter on a rebound where he just flopped, and that put Keita in foul trouble, and that kind of forced our hand to play the small ball lineup. But it's just one of those things where, like, the starting lineup today played 0 seconds together throughout the entire regular season and playoffs to that point. It's just too little too late. And it felt like the energy guys, the fact that we always had one guy on the court that was like a wild man playing for his career, that served us well in the regular season, and we moved away from that in the playoffs, and it just didn't feel like we had any answers.
And that's what you heard, that they should have been, like, the Sixers run like 7 guys. We should have been expanding our bench and running the floor, wearing these guys out, and we waited too late to do it. And like, Ron Harper Jr., if you have the box score in front of you, how many minutes did he play? Did he ever come? Like,
no, he played the first 4 minutes of the game,
and then he never came back in.
Correct. He played 4 minutes and never came back in. He had 2 steals in those 4 minutes. Obviously,
and
I thought he had 7.
That was a great hustle play.
Yes.
When they tried to chug the ball up to Embiid, and like, I will, as much as I don't think some of those guys are NBA players, I will at least give them credit. They felt the moment, and they were on the ground getting any type of loose ball they could get, and realize, hey, we might not be the most talented players, but we are going to try to do everything in our power to out hustle these guys, and we're going to be gritty. So I give them credit for that. But at the end of the day, this is the NBA. Talent's going to win out, and there's just no talent in that starting 5. Especially when you have Jaylen Brown starting off the game, turning the ball over. And listen, Derek White actually was good offensively tonight, but I don't know if you noticed this. Like, all we hear about is Derek White's defense. I thought he had a couple terrible moments on defense where Paul George just beating him. Like, to the hoop. Like there's 2 or 3 times like that where he's just George kind of has him in the post and he just spins off and Derek White's beat. Derek White had a great game. Overall, had a really bad series. Even thought tonight defensively he was not great.
Yeah, I mean, especially early in that game, there were a few moments like what you touched on where Embiid is catching the ball and you see 5 guys in the Celtics just staring at Joel Embiid. And you got guys like Jaylen Brown and Derek White just getting beat off of back cuts from Kelly Oubre and Paul George that result in easy dunks. Meanwhile, all of our offense at that point was predicated around watching Jaylen Brown dribble for 12 seconds or just hoping that there'd be a kick out three that falls, which wasn't the case at that point early in the game. And that's where the game was lost. And so you did touch on something with Jaylen Brown, just to give you his stat line and set the stage here a little bit. He finished the game. If you didn't watch, it probably looks a lot better on paper than for anybody watching the game, but he did finish the game with 33 points. He was 12 of 27 from the field. He finished the game with just 3 turnovers, felt like more in the moment. I don't know if it was just me, maybe I'm picking nits here. I didn't like the performance from Jaylen Brown. I know that he was put in a tough situation.
I have not checked the box score. I did not know he had 33 points. It did not feel like a 30-plus point. He had a strangler or hold on the game at all.
Especially early in that game, because it was not the job of Baylor Shireman and Ron Harper and Luka Garza to set the tone. It was their job to play with as much energy as humanly possible in those few minutes that they were getting early. It was on Derek White and Jaylen Brown to set the stage early by just creating some easy buckets and getting into the flow. Now, Jaylen Brown took a couple decent shots early, but for the most part, it was just all of the shots that he took were incredibly difficult. And then maybe you can point to not having Tatum out there that helps with some of it, but there was just so many possessions where it was so predictable, where you know he's settling for a really tough elbow jumper, and he's honestly playing the whistle, trying to create contact, and then know that those guys have to recover and get back into his shot, and then he's kind of throwing his body around. I didn't like it, and I do felt like Jaylen Brown, he had a great regular season. He was on my first team All-NBA, but in the playoffs and in this series, it proved that his inefficiency and his inability to consistently get shots that you can bank on, that you felt good about, it took our team out of the offense. And did you feel the same way, where it was just like when Jaylen was in the game, we were just standing watching him, asking him to create?
I mean, I feel like all year we've heard that he thinks he's an A player, that this is his team now, like with no Tatum. And I think tonight showed that he's not a Batman. He's a Robin. Like an A player makes some of those shots that he missed down the stretch at the end of that game, where they had Philadelphia on the ropes, and he couldn't hit them. And I don't know.
And even then, not only that, he was gassed. There was a couple plays, one defensively down the stretch, where we should note that in Joel Embiid, inevitably, he played a lot of minutes in this game. Jaylen Brown bumps Tyrese Maxey. Maxey falls back into Joel Embiid's knee. And in the final couple minutes of the game, Embiid is quite literally dragging around his right knee throughout the game, like limping out there. Jaylen Brown had the matchup. Granted, he was probably tired from guarding Joel Embiid when he had 2 healthy legs, for whatever it's worth, and was killing him in the post. But there's a play where Tyrese Maxey just gets to the rim because Jaylen Brown is glued to Joel Embiid in the corner, who was, let me just check real quick, he was 1 of 4 from 3. Joel Embiid is not a threat from 3 on one leg at that point in the game, and Tyrese Maxey makes a layup, and on the other end, we settle for a couple threes late that rimmed out, just like they were doing all night long. It made me sick.
2 from 3. What was the final tally on the Celtics from 3?
Wasn't good. It was not good. They shot 26% from 3. They shot 13 for 49. So damn near he's attempted in this game.
What you can't do when you're a home team in a game 7 is you cannot let the road team take the crowd out of the game early. So what you can't do is you can't sit behind the 3-point line, hook up threes, and then fall down 9-0. And then when you've already lost 2 games in a row and are on the verge of blowing a 3-1 lead, let the road team come in and just take the air out of the building. And these NBA refs, I think, like I've kind of said earlier, I think the way the game's officiated is just gross and terrible. Like, these NBA refs love blowing the whistle when you take the ball to the hoop. The offensive player almost always gets the benefit of the doubt. Do things change a little bit in the postseason? Yes. I just think you're bailing out the defense when all you do is huck up threes, because you're losing your opportunity to go to the free throw line and have the other team pick up fouls, because, like I said, the refs love to blow the whistle. And all you have to do is kind of play to the ref. I just don't think you're doing yourself on offense any service when you just constantly huck up threes, especially when you're struggling to do so.
I agree. There was really not much that came easy for the Celtics offensively. Maybe I'm just a homer here, but I kind of liked what Peyton Pritchard did tonight. It felt like the best stretch that the Celtics had all night long was in the second quarter when Jaylen Brown was actually out of the game and it was White and Pritchard running the offense. I felt like Peyton Pritchard, when he had the ball, the possessions were still slower than what I've liked to be because I did feel like you said, our best option would have been to run the floor, expose the fact that Philly literally had 3 bench points all night long. We were a deeper team and we were tonight as well. But Peyton Pritchard, at least when he got the ball, he touched the paint and he was looking to distribute. Jaylen Brown, he did finish the game with 4 assists, but frankly, I'm surprised he even got to that number. It didn't look like he was willing to distribute at any point, and we were just way too predictable down the stretch. And the offense was stagnant. We relied on the 3, and it burned us. And it's not a surprise that a bunch of role players that didn't get many minutes earlier in that series were tight from 3 all night long.
Pritchard really, really big miss in the corner there at the end of the. And like I said, I think he's turned into a decent little NBA player. But there's nothing worse than the guy that thinks he's really good at the end of each quarter. Like, oh, Mr. What is that idiot play-by-play guy, Drew Scott, whatever the loser's name that does the play-by-play? Oh, P. Rabbit. Like, he thinks like that's his thing now, where I'm going to beat the buzzer every time. And I think it was game 5 or game 6, completely ball hogging it at the end of the quarter when he could have just passed the ball off. And I think he did it at the end of one of the quarters tonight too. Horrible. Like, him and Scalabrine is like literally my hell. That is my hell. I think and by the way, I don't know if you've heard Scalabrine. I think he was calling a Nuggets game, maybe a Nuggets Wolves game on Peacock. Yeah. Not terrible when he's not calling a Celtics game and he doesn't have Lucky the Leprechaun's penis in his mouth for 48 minutes. So yeah, I know I'm going off the rails here. I hate the Celtics broadcast. I'm not looking forward to listening to them next season. I think all these play-by-play guys all sound the same. I think little Nepo baby Noah Eagle too. It's a little I had to get off my chest. I hate this is like young generation, like Mike Gorman. He just calls the game. Like, all these younger guys think they need like their little motto to say when the ball goes in for 3, and they all sound the same. They're all terrible. This is just stuff that gets built up for a year with these loser play-by-play guys that all sound the same.
Hey, I understand, man. Trust me. I mostly agree with you, but at the same time, when we have Reggie Miller calling a Game 7 on NBC, I almost missed our home broadcast. I actually missed watching Game 6 live because I was at a work event, and I'm just checking the score. Meanwhile, the Knicks are up by 60 points, taking care of business against an inferior team, and deserve to be the favorites coming out of the East. It's kind of surprising that even earlier today, I'm pretty sure the Celtics were still the favorites to come out of the East. But here what were your thoughts though? Were you confident heading into tonight? Did you think that we were going to pull it off? Like, what was your confidence level
coming into just tonight?
Just tonight, after what we saw in games, 5 and 6 to get to this point.
Yeah, I just had a bad gut feeling going into the game, but I still this is also, if you're talking, when Tatum got ruled out, I thought they were going to lose the game. When I thought Tatum was still going to play, I go, you know what? They're at home. I still think I think they're going to pull it out. Like, I don't think they should be 7.5 point favorites, but I think they're going to win the game.
Yeah.
And
I thought so too.
Yeah, then Tatum gets ruled out, and then it's kind of like, okay, wow, now this is like a coin flip game. Like, they have to hit their threes now, and they didn't, and they lost.
And we saw this team play as a top 2 seed in the East all regular season long for the most part without Jason Tatum, so we should have had confidence, especially at home, and it didn't work out like that. Let's talk about Tatum here for a second. I didn't love the performance from what I saw, the bits and pieces in Game 6 from him, but I thought for the most part, he looked pretty healthy. Maybe we overdid it a little bit for him averaging about 40 minutes a game in this series. What do you think that says about Tatum? Were you shocked to see him get hurt? I know he got banged up in Game 6. I do think the Celtics deserve to be hit with a pretty hefty fine because they clearly lied. Joe Mazzulla said he was playing. Jason Tatum said he was playing. He was not on the injury report. He was not questionable, and then suddenly he gets ruled out 2 hours before tip-off. What do you think about Jason Tatum and his decision to not play in Game 7?
It's tough because, you don't want to fall into the trap of really criticizing a guy sitting out for injury if he's actually injured. Like, for example, the Rockets-Lakers series, I think Kevin Durant is just a complete puss. Like, sorry. The Rockets, actually look like they're actually going to play basketball and fight back and win 2 games. Almost Kevin Durant comes back, maybe they could potentially win that series. We don't need to get into that. But, I don't know. If he was actually hurt, then I guess you have to sit him in case you don't want to re-hurt the Achilles. I don't know. I think the league is soft. I think if this was 20, even 20 years ago, I think if this is the big three era. Like I think guys play with some of these injuries. I think the league's gone soft. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if he was 80%, he should have been out there playing. I don't know. I think these guys don't play through. They don't take pride enough in their craft to play as much as they should. Like you go back and you look at like Michael Jordan or like a Kobe Bryant. I think it was either Kobe or Jordan said, I want to play all 82 games because there might be some, guy bringing his kid to his game that works 40 hours a week that's saved up for these tickets that wants to see me play basketball. I want to be out there. That like era of basketball and that sentiment has gone completely out the window. These guys don't really care. They care about their brand. They don't care about the actual product they put out on the court. So to answer your question, I'm not shocked to see him sit out. I wish he played. Listen, if he was actually seriously hurt and he couldn't play, then that's on me for criticizing it. But it is what it is. You don't really and like I don't really think that's on us for really questioning these guys not playing. Like you said, the NBA had to put into a thing about like lying about the injury reports and like I don't gamble as much as I used to with two kids, but like I occasionally bet. And there were so many times a couple years ago where you bet on a team that there's nobody on the injury report. You bet at 3 o'clock. It's like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and Luka Doncic isn't playing tonight. And I just bet, you're done. Like, and you can't put FanDuel, like, you take all this advertising money from these big gambling companies and have people betting on your product and then pull stuff like that.
Yep. And I do think that like a lot of the blame for the Tatum situation, probably, I don't want to be like the cop out. I don't want to blame any of the players, and I'm just blaming the coach here. But the fact that Jason Tatum played 36 minutes a game, leading the team in minutes earlier in the season, he is still less than a year removed from an Achilles injury. We had the depth. We had the depth advantage over Philadelphia. Even in this game 7, again, they had 3 bench points. It was one of those things where maybe if we had held off on the wear and tear on Jason Tatum, and it just felt like we had way too much on his shoulders in this series for a team that we were just superior to all year long. I just want to call out that, like, you touched on it, 3 of the 4 years of Joe Mazzulla's tenure as the Boston Celtics head coach has ended in disaster, in which we've lost to teams that we were very heavy favorites against in the postseason. You go back to the Miami series where we fall down 3-0, come back just for Jason Tatum to sprain his ankle. Then we win the title. We lose to the Knicks in Philadelphia. I don't know about you. How much worse does this make it? Losing to the fans of New York, losing to the fans of Philadelphia. I don't know about you, but it just makes me fucking sick to my stomach. I think that makes it 200% worse, the way that we've been eliminated in those cities the
It
past
does
couple
make
years.
it worse because earlier I thought you were going to ask me what I thought about Celtics coming into the postseason. I picked them to come out of the East because I don't respect, and I still don't respect anybody else in the East. So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that comes down to me just overrating the Celtics, thinking that they were going to, like the Pistons. Wagner, if you say his last name, doesn't get hurt. The Pistons are done. Orlando Magic choked last night. That Pistons team, I don't care if they're going to win tomorrow. They're fraudulent. Cleveland with James Harden, like frauds. Like we could go through the East. All these teams, like I can't believe one of these teams is going to get to go to the NBA championship. They all are just not good. It'll probably be the Knicks, would be my guess. Because I guess maybe I think so many of these teams in the East are they're just bad. I think whoever comes out of the West is going to wipe the floor, and it's probably will be OKC.
Yeah, the reality is I think that Western Conference Finals that we're headed toward with San Antonio and OKC, I think that's going to determine the champion. I think the Spurs have a shot because of what Wemby brings to the table and the fact that they did do a great job against OKC in the regular season. But yeah, I was a fool for believing that the Celtics, anything can happen in a 7-game series. I think this series against Philadelphia shows it. The fact that we looked phenomenal through a game, and then game 3 was great as well. We look like the better team, so you never really know what's going to happen. And the reality is guys get hurt. I mean, you look at the Minnesota series, you look at the Denver series that was marred by injuries on both sides of the ball. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So I felt like the Celtics, they had a decent road to the finals. They squandered that opportunity. Here we are in Philadelphia, losing to them. I don't think Joel Embiid's going to stay healthy for 2 more rounds. I think that's basically impossible at this point, so I don't think Philly has a real shot. I'd be pretty surprised if they even make it through the Knicks.
Can I
guess
ask,
this is the point of
is
the
there a small,
Go
not to
ahead.
cut you off, is there a small part of you that's like a little bit happy for the Sixers? Like finally finally beating us and like kind of like, I kind of want to see what they can do from here is my point. Is like they actually have some talent. Like if Embiid, like you said, if he can stay healthy, you have Max, who I think is a really good player.
Absolutely.
You have Paul George, who doesn't look nearly as bad as he did last season when he played. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I'm not happy that they won, but I think as much as I just crapped on all the teams in the Eastern Conference, I mean, 2 Game 7s tomorrow. I'm excited to see who's actually going to prevail because it really, like, it could be anybody. There's still 6 teams that could potentially go to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think that we should give Philadelphia some shred of credit because I think they deserve to win the game tonight. I think Paul George, honestly, his stats look pretty meek on paper, but he had 13 points. I thought he played phenomenal defense in this series. It felt like all of the field goals that he had were at like wonderfully timed baskets, either face-up jumpers. Kind of looked like a little bit of like late-stage Carmelo Anthony. I was getting. It's nice that I feel like this. Honestly, if you look at the history of Paul George, I don't have all of his playoff resume in front of me, but I will say this is one of his better series. I think he finally looks healthy. It's very nice of playoff P to finally arrive on his 36th birthday. It's pretty unfortunate that it happened against us.
I think Kelly Oubre did a good job in this series, too. On defense, I thought he made Jaylen Brown look extremely uncomfortable a lot during this series. And honestly, a guy that's kind of always been around giving the Celtics fits. Like, if you even remember into his Wizards days when we had Isaiah Thomas, like I don't know if you remember that scuffle he had with Olynyk. No, that was Kevin Love. I don't know what the heck I'm talking about.
No,
Like,
you're right. There was Kelly v. Kelly for a second there. You're right. You're
okay,
right. That happened in the Wizards.
But there also
Celtics
was
series.
a Kelly Olynyk Kevin Love moment too, where Kelly Olynyk kind of like pulled his shoulder out. That's what I was thinking of. But yeah, I thought he had a good series. Like, so yeah, it is what it is. It's disappointing. I'm not a huge hockey fan, but I show up for the Bruins in April just to like have another team to watch. Both get eliminated at home back-to-back nights. And now it's just, as a neutral, I'm a neutral now watching these games the rest of the way.
I think that's where we're at. Yeah, I mean, Tyrese Maxey had a great game in his own right, worth calling out. 30 points for him. VJ Edgecombe he only shot well in 2 games of this series from the outside anyway, and tonight he was 5 of 11 from 3. I honestly felt like I was pretty comfortable with him taking a lot of those looks just because Embiid was killing us and we didn't really have a way of double teaming without leaving somebody open. And I was pretty comfortable with Edgecombe being that guy with the other shooters that they had on the court. But he made us pay. So huge credit to him. I will give Philly some credit in saying that this particular batch of Sixers is more likable than many years in the past because Paul George, I think he's taken his fair share of heat over the past couple years. Joel Embiid took a tough break with that appendectomy, and the fact that he came back and had maybe one of the best playoff series of his career, he does deserve some credit despite how unwatchable he can be at times. And Edgecombe and Maxey are just likable guys. They're likable players. They play hard. I think the youth and athleticism that they have, the advantage over the Celtics guards, even a guy in Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, who I love, they're just outclassed in that department. Kata, for the record, was 17 and 12 tonight. He was actually awesome. He was a +9, best plus-minus on the team. He was awesome in the minutes that we had, but he just couldn't stay out of foul trouble. He had 5.
That's 29 fouls for the series. I mean, I'm not good at math. What's that? 4 fouls a game? Pretty much a game.
Yep, exactly. And a lot of that is the Embiid hoax, but at some point he has to control himself. And that could have been coached out of him, and it wasn't. So that really killed us. The vibes are tough. The vibes are tough for the Celtics fans. Heading into next year, let's kind of look ahead to the future. We did say we were going to do a tight 15 minutes. I know you're a busy man, and we've given the fans 45 minutes.
I'm just sitting out here in the cold. Listen, anytime you need me, especially after a Celtics loss, I'm here. I'm here. It's only 45 degrees. It could be colder.
Giving the fans the content that they need after a really tough one to Philadelphia here. But as we look ahead, I don't want to be the glass half full guy, and I don't want to make excuses like Tatum being out and the fact that this was, for the most part, a year where we had pretty low expectations. But does this make 24 feel like more of an anomaly? Like, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I still believe that a core of Tatum and Brown can win, but we need to get that cast of role players right. And obviously, I think we're going to retool. I think we're going to have the opportunity to get some players in free agency now that we're below the second apron, and we did do a good job managing contracts and all that shit this season. But do you have confidence? Do you think that this Tatum Brown window for the Celtics is still open for next year?
I would keep the two together, and like you said, I'd try to retool everybody around them because that seems like that's really what the issue is. I hope that's what somebody like Jaylen Brown wants. I hope after having pretty much a team for yourself for a year, I just don't want this internal struggle between the two of like Brown thinking he's the guy and then not being okay with Tatum being the guy. I think if Brown can continue to just accept that he's going to be the B guy, then I'm fine with keeping these two together. And like you said, I would retool the guys around them, see what they could do, because no matter what, the East is still not going to be great next season. And I would move on from the head coach. My prediction is they will not move on from the head coach. I don't even remotely think they will. I think the ownership group really likes him. for some reason the owner's wife like really likes Joe Mazzulla. I think it's the interaction was a little bit creepy, if I'm being completely honest. So I think Mazzulla will be here next season, unfortunately. Do I think they will win another championship with Joe Mazzulla? I do not. I think he will be gone eventually. It will not be this summer, but he will not be the head coach if the Celtics get what I believe would be banner 19.
Yeah. I think I have to agree. I don't think we should get rid of Missoula just because I don't see a better candidate sitting out there. And for what he did in the regular season, he deserves some credit. But this was an awful series for him. Lost a lot of respect from my end. I don't want to sit here and claim to be a tough guy. At least I know I'm not. But I also don't portray myself as a tough guy. And when you preach that to the media, he seems to take a lot of pride and the opportunities that he has to talk about how tough he is. And he actually kind of does a lot of media in the offseason and, has this really quirky way it's really endearing when the team is winning. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to defend your guy and defend your staff when the best player on the other team is acting like an a-hole on your bench and deserved a technical in that moment. And for what it's worth, Joel Embiid got teed up later in that game. I was kind of surprised that they called it, but and would it have been a technical if Joel Embiid already had one at that point? The refs probably don't call it as such, but theoretically, he gets a technical for that little interaction in the bench, and he gets tossed out in the fourth quarter when he gets that second technical. So
that assistant coach is his underlink too. Like it's his underlink. Like he's an assistant coach. Like you're not going to come, like not to go to a different.
Yeah, that's not his job to fight that fight. He held onto the ball. What else do you want him to do? It's on the head coach or the teammates or the bench to defend him in that moment, and they didn't. And that said a lot about how much fight the Celtics were willing to put up.
There was an incident I'm going to switch sports real quick, in the Ryder Cup this past summer or this past fall where one of the golfers went at another guy's caddy. And the golfer went at the other golfer and said, "You're not going to come at my caddy and think you can disrespect somebody that's, if you look at the employee skill, beneath me." And that's somebody that's beneath Joe Mazzulla. He should have been like, "You're not going to think that you can come and just grab the ball from one of my assistant coaches." And he should, at the bare minimum, the players should have done something. Maybe some of them didn't see it. The bench saw it. The bench had to have seen it and be like, "Dude, you're not going to come over and touch my coach," is pretty much what. Usually that's stuff like that's not acceptable. Team that came out, I think, a little bit heartless tonight. And I think you saw that from the way the game opened up, and which is why the Celtics were playing catch up all night, which is why they lost.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's tough. I think the Tatum Brown era will continue, and I think it should continue, but I wouldn't blame anybody that says the championship window is closed. And I think that's what we're seeing. We saw it with the Bucks. Obviously, they've had a disaster a couple of years since they won in 21. The Nuggets, they get bounced in the first round after winning in 2023. And I think what we're seeing is like the windows are just shorter, especially with the second apron.
There's 100% a pattern right now where we think these teams that win one are like, oh, man, they might get like two. They might get like three. We did it with Milwaukee, with Denver, with Boston. And it's just nice. I think it's good for the league, actually good for the sport. But this is now a pattern. And
yes,
we'll see. And this is going to be a true test this year. Let's see what happens with Oklahoma City. Like we're assuming they're going to go back to back. They might not. Recent trend is that has not happened. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they're uniquely set up because they're young and their depth is just stupid. They're like top to bottom. They just outclass every other team in the NBA, but it's hard. It's hard to compete year over year, especially when you're playing an 82-game regular season and then you're playing, 20-plus games in the postseason, playing into June every year. It's hard. So that's why I think like a team like San Antonio is live. I think OKC has a shot. And I just think that the Celtics window, like, they were all, even this year, as much as I thought that they had a chance just because I thought they were levitating above the other teams in the East, I never thought that they were on the level of San Antonio or OKC or even Denver. I mean, I'm an idiot for that, for believing in them and then being my preseason pick and them getting bounced in the first round. But yeah, I just wanted the Celtics to at least advance past Philly. If they lose to the Knicks, that would have been one thing because I did feel like the Knicks were always the second best team in the East and they took a lot of flack just for being a dramatic team in the regular season, but at least they knew who their guys were. They had an identity, and it's just an incredibly disappointing end to a Celtics season. And I want to come out and say this. I want to give you a little window here to speak to any Boston fanboys here in a second, but I just don't want to see any Celtics fans blaming this loss on Jason Tatum not being available in Game 7, because the fact is it should never have gotten to this point. If you want to say that this was a gap year and that the expectations were low and the fact that we lost in round 1 isn't that bad, any Celtics fans that are saying that, like, you're a homer. So I'll just give you that moment to either echo that point or just kind of speak to the fanboys. I would 100%
echo that point. But that is what's going to happen. That is the Celtics fanboy cycle. Overrate the team, and this is what was happening before they won the championship. Overrate the team, they fall short, make excuses. 48 hours go by, nothing bad happened. We're going to pick the team to win, like every year, picking the team to win the championship and they come up short and then not holding the team accountable. It's an endless cycle. That's unfortunately who these people are. I don't respect fans that are like that. Like, I think, like someone like you, I think you're a diehard fan, but I think you have a brain between your ears. I don't think any of these people do. I think they are, it's just any sport. I can't stand somebody that just continues to overrate their team and then when their team falls up short, not hold them accountable. I don't find that very fun to do. I'm the complete opposite of the spectrum. But yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of that. And that excuse is potentially what ownership is going to use for Missoula to keep his job if they were considering potentially moving on. Would be like, oh, well, Tatum got hurt again. It's a gap year. And that's why, like I said, ultimately, I think he'll be back next season.
Yeah, I think so
But
too.
by the way, the last thing I'll say about the fanboys, this is my last point, because I don't know if I really ever took a victory lap from a couple years ago. This is what the fanboys do. They love Marcus Smart. Oh, he's a winner. He bleeds green. Shocker, they ship him off. In the first season he's gone, they win a championship. That's who these people are. That's who these fans are. They overrate oh, let's give everybody a nickname too. They are the worst fan group out of the four in the city. The absolute worst. They've never had a bad day in their life. Like I said, they wake up and they see rainbows. They just like they wake up happy. Where I wake up mad, as you're seeing right now. And I will be mad tomorrow when I wake up, because that's how I wake up.
Yeah, the, the fan base should be sick to their stomach, blowing a 3-1 lead and losing in round one after being a very comfortable second seed in the East with a real chance to take the number one seed in the conference late in the season. It's unacceptable to any team, but especially to Philadelphia. So I do think Jaylen Brown's season, it was awesome in the regular season, but I think the playoffs and the 7-game sample size that we had showed that he is closer to being more of like in that 20 to 30 range of NBA players than he is to being top 10. He's probably going to get first team All NBA this season, or at least second team. And it's a great story that he was so effective without Tatum. But I think we now have a sample size enough to prove that he's not going to be your number one guy. He's not going to lead you even through a first round series if Jason Tatum was out. And yeah, it's really disappointing. I've lost a lot of respect for Joe Mazzulla in this series. I'm disappointed in the output from Jaylen Brown. I'm disappointed in the output from Derek White. As much as I love him, I definitely don't think we need to be rash and get rid of him. But I think his defense took a step down, and I think his shooting really killed us, because if he was even a halfway decent shooter, had halfway decent confidence earlier in that series, it never would have got to 7 games. I mean, he surpassed his series high in the first quarter when he scored 12 points. I mean, he was like an 8-point-a-game guy earlier in this series, and that's what killed us.
Kind of the last comment I'll make, to look forward, like you said, Derek White not ready to move on from a Missoula. The pressure is going to build next year, though. Like, next year is a big year. Because like you said, they have more flexibility in the offseason. They should build a better team. We should see a deep postseason run next year. And if we don't, heads should and probably will fly.
Yeah.
That's a story for another time.
Totally. I mean, the East, there was a lot of talk about the East being weak, but next year, I don't think it's going to be that much different. I mean, Indiana will be back. A lot of that depends on if they get lucky in the lottery. They gave a lot of shit away for Zubac, which I thought was a terrible move. But when they're actually trying to win and they bring Halliburton back, they'll be a better team. So you're adding at least one more team that could feasibly go to the NBA Finals. It's only going to get harder from the Celtics. I mean, Jaylen Brown, amazing season, career season in year 10, but he's 30 years old now. And Jason Tatum's going to be like 28, 29 next year. That window is closing. I'm not going to go as far as to say that it's slammed shut, but they're going to have to make some pretty unbelievable moves in the offseason to get on the same level of OKC or San Antonio. And I don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to get back to that level. So it's disappointing. And yeah, I think this was a pretty good therapy session across the board. So anything else that you want to say to the growing listenership of Words with Wallace? Any other parting thoughts, RJ?
No, I can't feel my hands. Like I said, 45 degrees out here, but that's what I do. Like I said to my wife, I said, when negativity calls, I come. And this is a big spot for me. So I showed up. I can never deny the opportunity to come on after a Celtics loss. I knew the bat signal was going up. And listen, I think we originally said we were going to do 15 minutes. We've done 55. So I think that shows that I had a lot to say tonight. Whenever you need me, always happy to hop on. I'm sure, hopefully next year you don't need me. Hopefully next year the Celtics win a championship and I don't come on. But I have a feeling you'll probably be seeing me next year again.
Yeah, nobody I'd rather, shed a few tears. We both had our fair share of drinks tonight, and we needed this therapy session. This is one for us. I honestly don't even care if the listeners like this because I needed to get this off my chest, and nobody I'd rather share this moment with. So thank you, RJ, for
Of
joining me.
course.
I'm sure I'll have a pod literally tomorrow, just going through the rest of round one because I was sick last week. Had a lot of energy, had so much ambition in my eyes on my last podcast as I so proudly projected the Celtics to come out of the East and they fall to Philadelphia. You can say the Tatum injury or whatever, but make no mistake, Philadelphia deserved to win the game tonight. And we'll see what they do next round. I don't think Embiid's going to stay healthy. I expect the Knicks to come out of the East, but the Celtics have a long offseason in front of them and they have a lot of work to do. So thank you, RJ. Thank you guys for listening. And we will talk to you tomorrow with another podcast.